I used individual images in row 5 previously, but the template indicates that a carousel slider was to be used here, and UIkit just happens to have one. To set it up, I have a div with the UK grid class to create a row. Then I've added a full width column inside that. Next, a div with the data attribute data UK slider. Another div with the class of UK slider container. Then an unordered list with the class UK slider. You add the grid width classes to this list. The width classes specify how many images are visible in the carousel at one time. Also 6 on the large devices, 4 on medium, and 3 on smalls. I copied the latest work images from the template and reduced their size so I can fit more on the screen at once. There are 16 of these images, and I've named them with LW, latest work, and a number. Each of the images is added as a list item. You can see the first one here, the LW01. I'll just go ahead and pop the rest of these in there. So we have 1 through 16. That's not exactly what I expected the slider to look like. The problem is that the slider is not part of the core functionality of UIkit. Slider is a component. In order to use UIkit components, you need to include the additional JavaScript and CSS required by that component. In the JavaScript folder, you'll find the file we need in the Components folder. It's named Slider, and there's also a minified version. I'll add a link to that file at the bottom of the page where I have my other JavaScripts linked. The CSS files are found in the CSS folder, also in the Components folder. All the components have styles to match each UIkit theme. I'm using the almost flat theme, so I need to use those file versions. Again, we're looking for slider. There's the slider almost flat and the minified version. I'll use that minified version. The other file we need is a slide nav, which is this file right here. This will style the arrows used to navigate the slider. Links to those files need to be added to the head of the HTML file. I'll add those after the main UIkit CSS file, but before my custom CSS file. Right now it just looks like a row of pictures, but I can click and drag the slider left or right. The slider works with touch screens as well. There are a few settings you can control from the attribute data UK slider. Here I've set the slider to autoplay, scrolling every 2 seconds. Center true means that rather than aligning to the edges of the images as they enter and exit the slider, the images align at their center. Here's a list of all the options you can define for the slider. There we see the autoplay advancing every 2 seconds, and you can see the centering of the images at the left and right of the slider. The left is the exact center, right is going to depend on the width and how the images line up across the width of the device. So that is our 6 images there. Going down to 4 at the medium and 3 at small. Now we just need to add the navigation to the slider. To do that, add a class to the div that has the data attribute, data UK slider. This class will be UK slide nav position. And then just outside the container, inside the UK slider div, you need to add these 2 links for the next and previous slides. The class UK slide nav contrast makes the navigational arrows white, and as you can see with this particular set of images, those aren't too visible. So if we remove that class, we get darker arrows. The other option is to create your own styles for that. And here I have styles for the slide nav contrast and the slide nav contrast hover. These are red, just to give you an example of what you can do with that. So there you see the arrows and the slight change on hover.